Hello again, and thank you for joining us this Gradcracker webinar with Cummins. I would first like to introduce the Gradcracker members of the panel. My name's Carla, a director at Gradcracker, and I have been with the business for nearly 15 years and have looked after Cummins for all of this time as well. So,
Thanks, Carla. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie, also a director here at Gradcracker, and I look after a number of the other employers who advertise on Gradcracker.
thanks, sir. So during this webinar, our aim is to find out more about Cummins. We will talk about who they are, what they do, and also what opportunities you, our STEM students, can apply for this year on Gradcracker. We will then speak to the students about what life is like for them, what projects that they have worked on, if they're involved in any networking groups, what training and development they've received so far, and also their future plans. We will then end the webinar by discussing the recruitment process and giving you an idea of how you can be successful. As I have mentioned previously, you can submit your questions before the webinar. I've got some really good technical questions today, so we'll be raising those with some of the students a bit later on. But don't forget, for future webinars, the system's there on Gradcracker on the webinars page, where you can just click and submit your questions for the future webinars that we've got in November, December and January. So let's start the webinar with Cummins. And you will remember Grace from previous years. Grace, thank you for joining us again today. So Grace is a talent acquisition specialist and will be giving you an insight into Cummins, the roles which are currently live on the Gradcracker Hub, and also the recruitment process. We're also joined by placement students Asha, Neha and Jack, who we'll be speaking to a little bit later on. So Grace, for anybody who doesn't know you, I don't know why they don't know you, but tell everybody a little bit about you and your background at Cummins.
Thanks, Carla. Thank you for welcoming Cummins back again. It's been great to be part of the webinars the last few years. So like Carla said, I work in the talent acquisition team at Cummins. I actually started my career at Cummins as a student. So I joined the supply chain function in 2013, and I had such a fantastic experience. I knew very minimal information of Cummins before I joined, but I learned lots when I got integrated into the team, and I just absolutely loved it. So I was very fortunate enough to come back as a graduate. So I'll talk a bit later about the benefits of doing a placement and how it can sort of set you up for a future career. I've been here ever since. I've had the opportunity to work in lots of different teams, and I've now found myself actually in the talent acquisition team helping future students with their placements. So it's really nice to have sort of done a full circle, and be here now to chat to you and explain a bit more about Cummins.
Yeah. Oh, I remember those days, Grace, all those years ago. So if you can, Grace, tell everybody a little bit more about Cummins. And also, just so people know who's watching the webinar, Jack is part of a different Cummins business called Accelera. So Grace is going to give more of an introduction to Cummins and then a brief introduction to Accelera as well. So Grace, over to you.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard of Cummins, we are a global power leader. So we create power solutions for customers across the globe, working towards, meeting complex energy challenges. We predominantly design and manufacture engines, generator systems, power systems, components, which, include turbochargers, braking systems. And as Carla mentioned, we do have our new area, which is called Accelera, and that launched in 2023. And that business segment is our new power business segment. So Accelera has a broad portfolio of electric and hydrogen technologies, and that's for commercial transportation and industrial applications. And that new segment is all focused on clean power, zero emissions, and laying the foundation for a new green energy economy. So Cummins are a really large and very varied company, and as well as our exciting design and manufacturing departments that we have, we also have many supporting business functions, and they are critical for keeping the business running on a daily basis. So as I mentioned, I joined the supply chain team. I'm now in the recruitment team, and there's many more functions which I'll come on to talk about when we discuss our placement roles on the hub.
Yeah, perfect. And Jack will go into more detail about his area of the business in a little while as well. And I know some people who are watching, or everybody who's watching, really sustainability is really, really important. It's at the forefront of everybody's minds. And so we'll be discussing that in more detail a little bit later on in the webinar as well. So like Grace mentioned, what we're going to do now is going to give you a brief overview of the opportunities which are currently live on the Cummins Hub on Gradcracker. So just so you know what to expect, Cummins has got 36 year in industry placements currently advertised with us. There are some closing dates which are quite soon. So Monday, the 18th of November. So make sure you get your applications in for those. And there are closing opportunities closing throughout November and into early December as well. So closing dates such as the 18th of November, 29th of November and the 2nd of December. So keynote from me and Sophie is to get your applications in sooner rather than later. Don't miss out. But Grace, give a bit of an introduction, if you can, please, my love, to the roles that you've currently got live.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've advertised with Gradcracker for many years now. I think it's coming to about 15 years. So all the positions that we have on our hub are 12-month placement roles to start next summer. So as Carla mentioned, we've got 36 at the moment, and do please get your applications in soon. We tend to hire about 200 students each year. And I really want to emphasise that we hire students from a range of different backgrounds, different degree disciplines. So if you have a look at any of our roles, say that you're interested in an engineering role, we hire students from a range of STEM backgrounds, so we're not restricting you to having studied engineering. So some of our fantastic engineering students have studied maths, chemistry, physics, and we really value the different diverse perspectives that students from a range of different technical backgrounds can bring. So that's important to mention. But the roles that we have live at the moment are also very varied. So as well as a varying sort of levels of degrees that we take from students, we have varied roles. So at the moment on our hub, we have positions within supply chain, technical purchasing, we've got logistics, sales analytics, shop operations, IT, and then we've got lots of different engineering sub-functions. So there's such a variety. I do recommend having a look on our hub and going through the different positions, because there really is something there that will be suitable for everyone. So that's what we can offer at Cummins, certainly a lot of variety.
Yeah, absolutely. And Grace made some really good points there that I just want to reiterate. So there are 36 opportunities on Gradcracker, but as Grace just mentioned, you've got 200 places open to students. So it doesn't mean 36 opportunities, 36 students who they would recruit. One opportunity will recruit more than one student. So there's definitely variety for everybody and something for everybody, and they are open to all STEM disciplines. So the opportunities are highlighted on Gradcracker. The locations are on highlighted on Gradcracker as well. But just to give the students a bit of an idea, on the panel today, we've got students from who are based in Milton Keynes, Huddersfield and Darlington. I'm really struggling not to say Darlington, full title, Darlington. Grace, what other locations are available, or is it just those three?
No, so we hire into Daventry as well. So we have a big manufacturing facility at Daventry, lots of engineering positions there. We have roles at Wellingborough, at Peterborough. There might be some other locations available as well. So yeah, and I guess it depends sort of if students are interested in locating or not, as to sort of what location you want to apply to. So some of our roles are hybrid, and managers might be happy for their students to stay where they are, and ask students just to communicate occasionally to site. So those sorts of positions might be suited to someone who is really happy to stay put. If you've relocated to university and you don't want to relocate again, having a think about that. But a lot of our roles are, particularly the technical and the engineering roles, even though they might be hybrid, managers do still like students to be more present on site. And the reason for that is so that you could get that full Cummins experience, especially within like your first few months. We want you to be able to network with other engineers or your co-workers, and it allows you to have more in-depth training. And you can also mix with other students and build relationships there. But just to reassure you, if you are working hybrid, you will have lots of networking remotely as well. So there'll be lots of connection points with your team, with your manager. So you're never sort of just left alone to sit there. But we do encourage students to chat about the location at interview and see sort of, what's the scope for negotiation on that.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Grace. And one final question for you. Can students apply to multiple opportunities, or do they really just need to concentrate on the one opportunity they want to apply to?
No, absolutely. So we encourage you to apply to as many roles as you're interested in. Generally, we have recruiters. We have a big team of recruiters that work on our student roles, and they tend to sit within the same function. So we'll have one recruiter looking after all the engineering positions. So it's likely that they'll pick up that application and see that you've applied for multiple roles, so that you're not having sort of multiple sort of assessment points. They'll pick that up, and I'll cover off the assessment stages later on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know how we run these webinars, Grace. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's lovely to have you back, and it's great to see you again.
Thank
So what
you.
we're going to do now is hand over to Surf. Surf's going to meet the students who are all absolutely the smiliest and the most amazing students that we've met for a while. And Sophie we'll get to know those a little bit more. They all found their jobs through Gradcracker, so they've all got a really good insight about how to use Gradcracker and put their applications together. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Carla. Now I'm going to go back on what you just said, and I want to ask Grace a question before I start. I did this to you last time as well, didn't I? Grace, with your placement students, is there an opportunity for those placement students to return to you as graduates after they've completed that placement?
Absolutely. So we generally don't recruit externally for graduates. We fill our graduate roles with our ex-placement students. So the exceptional placement students that we have with us, we may be able to offer sponsorships for to return as graduates. So that's sort of our talent pipeline. We're a hire to develop organisation, so it's important that we try and retain as many of I can't speak. As many of our fantastic students as we can. So that's really important for us.
I thought that would be the case, Grace, but I thought I'd better make that clear that, there is the opportunity to come back. So thank you very much for that. Right, I am going to come over to our panel now. So I'm going to start with you, Jack. Would you be able to tell our audience a little bit about who you are and where you come from?
Yeah, so I'm Jack. I'm an automotive engineering student from Loughborough University. So I do a integrated master's course. So I've done 3 years, and then I've got my placement year, and then I'm going back for my final year. I only say because I know lots of people who aren't aware you can do a placement after your 3rd year. So if you think you've missed out, you can definitely still do one, and I definitely recommend it. So yeah, I'm working for Accelera, which is the electrification industry, and I'm focusing on performance simulation. So
fantastic. And what does a performance simulation industrial placement do?
So it's quite a technical role. I work within a team of analysts who know lots about simulations, and we support the design teams and the validation teams. So they will create something, and then it's up to us to make sure that it's all going to work. So it's very, very software heavy. So if you've used any 3D design, finite element analysis, I'll try and steer away from any acronyms. Fluid dynamics software. So it's all about validating designs, basically.
Thank you, Jack. And when Grace was giving us the introduction to Accelera, she mentioned that there was lots of kind of different applications that Accelera are working on in different industries. Are you working on a particular product or a particular industry whilst you're doing your placement?
Yeah, so Accelera does all things electrification. They make e-drive trains, electrolyzers, fuel cells, and battery systems. And so the site that I work at focuses on battery systems. But within that, there's many different battery projects. So although you're limited to one type of electrification technology, there's lots of variations within that. There's lots of different clients and different setups, different battery chemistries. So there's still quite a lot of variation with what we do here.
Great, thank you, Jack. And on your placement, are you going to be doing different rotations, or are you in the same team for that full 12 months?
So mine's a bit different to some of the others. Mine is just working with this team, which I quite enjoy. I'm really big on my simulation techniques. I know lots of the industry as well is moving to a more simulation focused role rather than doing in-person testing. So the opportunity to really focus and hone my skills and learn lots of new softwares and different techniques is something I really appreciate.
Okay, great. And prior to joining the placement, when you're at university, did you have experience of any of the software or techniques that you're currently using in your role?
So I broadly had some experience of there's kind of the three main softwares that I use. There's lots of different packages within that, but I do 3D design, finite element analysis, and fluid dynamics software. So I'd learned a package each for those at university, fairly introductory, but I had a small background in that, and then when I've come to Cummins, I've had to learn new packages as well. But once you've learned one, you can quite quickly apply it to others. So if you can apply for any optional software packages at university, I'd really recommend it, because these software isn't just used in battery tech. This is across the entire mechanical industry, and it's used in certainly all of my university projects, PhD as well. So if you can learn as much software as you can, I would certainly recommend that.
Amazing. A top tip there from Jack. So I know towards the end of the webinar, we are going to come back to you to talk a little bit about, how you can see the placement benefiting your university career. But I think, just some of the examples you've already given kind of make it clear that have how much benefit you've already got out the real world applications of what you've been doing. So thank you very much for Jack. I think, Carla, you've got one or a question from our audience now.
Yeah, but I think Jack's already answered it, Sophie, from your question. So we did have a question from Nigel at the University of Strathclyde, who was asking, as a performance simulation student, what technologies do you use, and do Cummins want any experience of the software systems? But I believe, Jack, you've answered that question, because you mentioned about fluid dynamic software, finite development, and 3D design. Would you say, as a technical student, that would have answered Nigel's question?
Yeah, I would certainly recommend learning those. Cummins has a massive amount of software. So if you studied at a university, I can almost guarantee you'll be able to use it at Cummins.
Yeah.
But you can also use alternates as well. Sometimes universities use sort of free academic licenses. So like MATLAB is free for universities, but very expensive in the industry. So I would recommend you can also learn the industry software here as well. So you can apply what you already know, and then also learn what's more broadly used that you won't get at university.
Yeah. And how do you learn those? Is it kind of a virtual environment that you learn the software in? Is it on the job? Is it a little bit of both?
So it is both. There's lots of pre-made tutorials that can get you up to speed with the basics. And then, you're surrounded by experts in your team who will certainly know much more about it. So when you start getting real projects, it's very easy to find help all around you.
Perfect. Lovely. Thanks, Jack. And hopefully, Nigel at Strathclyde, that has answered your question. Sophie, stop doing my job for me. Love you.
Yeah, sorry, Carla. I completely didn't read that question before I started asking everything. Sorry, that was my lack of preparation.
Like we don't prep for these sessions.
I know. Read this about 10 times today. Sorry. Right, moving on. Neha, would you be able to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah. So I'm Neha. I study business management at Queen's University Belfast. I've been at Cummins for about 3-4 months, and I am a technical sourcing placement student.
Fantastic, thank you. So you've relocated from Belfast over to Darlington for the placement. Can you tell us a little bit about how you found that process?
Yeah, so the way that it worked out was a few months before the placement started, Cummins sent out a group email to all the placement students in Darlington and asked if we were interested in joining a WhatsApp group chat. And then they shared out a link that anyone who was interested in joining that joined that link. And then a lot of us were actually relocating to be a part of a placement. So we all just kind of communicated with each other. And then the people who were looking to get places kind of got shared accommodation together. And people that live close enough to Cummins went for house viewings. And then one of the girls in the group chat found a house. So we all just, we're kind of all living together with other placement students.
That's really nice. And I think that's what a lot of students listening today will be kind of wanting to hear how that works, especially if you are relocating from quite a distance away. And it's great to kind of hear how Cummins kind of put you all together, and then you were able to work that out from yourselves, and you kind of moved into a group of students that are in exactly the same boat as you, which is really, really nice. So your current role is technical sourcing placement. Could you tell us a little bit about the role so far?
Yeah. So when I came in, I didn't have a lot of technical knowledge. I didn't come from an engineering background, so I was a little bit nervous about how I was going to fit into it. But when I applied initially, the only thing I knew was that I was interested in working in a role where I would communicate with a lot of people and work in a group of people. So I think anything that I needed to know about the role, all the technical aspects, I think I've learned on the job. I think
Yeah.
all I really came in from the university was just, the need to want to learn, and I wanted to learn, and then I came into Cummins, and they've prepared me for everything else. So I think, yeah, that's kind of what has helped me a lot.
Amazing. So you've been in the role for about 3 or 4 months now, and I know Jack kind of touched upon some of the training that he'd have, but I imagine the training that you get in your role is a little bit different. So I know you said you've kind of learned everything on the job, but again, as Carla was asking Jack, is that on the job training? Have you had training courses? How's that worked?
Yeah, so my job is essentially to buy parts for the engines that we build. So the kind of training that we've had is for me, because I don't come from an engineering background, I've had to learn essentially what goes into making the engine in the first place. So they've had engine awareness training set up for us to understand the production process. They've had like a lot of Excel training. They've had training on project management and just tours of the shop floor. I've gone down to the Daventry engine plant as well, and I've seen the production process there, and I think it's just been really beneficial to my learning.
Wow, that's a lot to achieve in 3 or 4 months, isn't it?
Yeah,
A lot to
it
learn as
is.
well. Brilliant. Thank you, Nihal. We're going to come back in and find out a little bit more about your kind of day-to-day work in a little while, but I want to come over to Asha now because I didn't want you feeling left out over there.
Thank you. Thank you.
So here we are. Asha, would you be able to give everyone a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Sure. So I'm Asha. I'm obviously placement student. I'm currently studying at the University of Nottingham. I have been at the company for about 4 months now, just over 4 months. And I'm based in the Huddersfield branch. And I am currently an applications engineer. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Great. Fantastic. And what does an applications engineer do at Cummins?
So it's very complicated. So Cummins has lots of different areas of business. So we obviously have like different departments, like Jack's part of Accelera. We've got our engines business unit. I'm part of components and software. So we do all the sort of extra bits to go with that. So we basically focus up here in Huddersfield on turbochargers. So as part of my role, it's all about making sure that turbochargers go with engines, that we have the integration plan to go with that, and making sure that everything aligns so that we can ship those out to put them on different sort of applications across the globe, really.
And are you working on, one specific client, or are you working on multiple different projects at once?
Definitely. So I mean, as you said earlier, the places that are up on your website, normally you can get 2 or 3 or 4 people taking up one of those adverts. So obviously some of my other fellow placement students, they're focusing on one account. I focus on multiple different accounts. So you do get that sort of variation. It's very, very involved, let's put it that way. But yeah, there's plenty of different things that you get to do with that. So yeah.
So are you working with people both internally and externally from Cummins as well then, Asha?
Yes. So obviously with our area of the business, we supply to both internal customers, so both Daventry and the Darlington plant. And then obviously we supply to external customers. So you get a very varied experience in how to interact and how to get used to building up that sort of rapport with the customers that you're working with, and you have different ways that each of them like to operate, but yeah, it's really, really different.
And previously to joining Cummins, had you had any sort of role where you were doing this kind of customer service, kind of customer interaction before?
I can't lie. I've been a retail gal for most of my life. I've been in the retail space for about 6 years. So as soon as I saw this job offering, I was like, this is very much my kind of thing. Interacting, being able to give customers what they want, but also it's a very engineering and technical focused role. We do a lot of stuff to do with sort of matching work, which is basically choosing the turbo for the application. So that's really, really interesting, and something that you do need a lot of engineering knowledge to be able to sort of work out.
That's really interesting. It's a real nice mix of roles that we've got on the webinar today. And I think it's interesting that, Ashley, you've come from an engineering background. Obviously, you're utilising that, but you've also got that kind of more softer side of the customer interaction. Whereas Nihal, you've kind of come from the different way around of, no technical background into quite a technical role and, learning all that side of things. And obviously Jack within that kind of purely technical. So I think that's a really nice mix, and just goes back to what Grace was saying at the beginning of the webinar. There is such a variety of roles, and also such a different way that everybody can utilise those skills that they've got, and that combination of skills they've got. Asha, I'm going to stick with you now, just to talk about projects that you've been involved in. So you've given us a brief overview of, what your role is, but is there any kind of key projects that you could tell us about in a little bit more depth?
So I think a lot of the stuff with apps engineering is a lot of the time we follow through a whole project. So a lot of the time you get different functions in a business who sort of dip in for certain areas that they're needed for. With our role, it's mainly seeing a project through from start to finish. We do a lot of the validation work. So when you get stuff returned from sort of in-field testing and stuff like that, that's very much a customer engineering role. You have to coordinate getting that back, doing the reports for that. But then we also have really sort of different projects where it's sort of the matching work, like I've said, where you get given sort of engine data and you've got to sort of match certain key parameters, very sort of thermodynamics, fluid mechanics based kind of thing, to ensure that the turbo you're putting on the application is to standard as to what people are wanting. But that's just a very small part of it. I wish I could say a bit more, but that's about it. It's really tricky, isn't it? Yeah, but it's really good fun, really good fun.
No, but I think that's really interesting, kind of all the things you've talked about there. There sounds like there's quite a lot to the role. So how do you manage your kind of day-to-day life? If you've got all these different kind of demands on your time and different clients and projects that you're working on, how is your kind of day-to-day time managed?
A lot of spreadsheets, let's put it that way. There's a lot of spreadsheets. No, I find that, I think, especially after being at university, depending on what your uni experience is, it's a very different side to it. You get very much into the routine of spending this much time on this much time on this. But I would say being able to effectively use your time and track it and see where it's going is great, because I know for me there would be tasks when I first started that would take hours and hours, and I'm now cut that down significantly. And I think it's all about knowing what to be doing and when to do it by, because you'll have 1,000,001 deadlines, but like I say, spreadsheets do also help, so you can keep an eye on everything. But yeah, just staying on top of everything. And I think I'm sure Jack and Nihal will agree with me. If there is any issues, always talk to your managers, especially in this company. We thrive with sort of, feeding off each other and helping each other, because we are one massive community, I feel. And so I think that asking your managers for help or advice or guidance when it comes to certain things is so important, and it's ingrained into us here at Cummins. And I think that's a really good way of also making sure that your workload is manageable.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Asha. And also, we've got to remember that you're only 4 months in, so I'm sure Cummins aren't going to expect you to be. I know, it's the amount you've done. I'm sure Cummins don't expect you to be there on day one, knowing how to manage all of this, knowing how to do everything. There's that settling in period, isn't there? But it sounds like you're given that responsibility from day one to do that. Nihal, I'm kind of going backwards now. I'm going to come back to you this time.
You're left field today, so aren't you?
I know, I'm just kind of going with it.
Make it up as you go along, love.
Yeah, I really am. So the projects that you've been involved in so far, is there anything specific that you can talk to us about for your role, Nihal?
I think I've been involved in a number of projects. I think I've been involved in an American project called ACE, and I think it's just a advanced combat engine, and it's been really interesting because I didn't have so much technical knowledge before, but as I've kind of worked into it, I think I've been given a lot more responsibility. And day to day, I work with suppliers. I have meetings with them and just work towards the tracking process to see if parts are getting delivered on time. I work with technical engineers, design engineers to share designs with suppliers and make sure that everything. Sorry. yeah, and work with engineers to share prints with suppliers to make sure that they can be produced by them and stuff like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've got, again, a range of different sort of people that you're working with every day, and having to kind of keep on top of that and keep track of that. I know we touched upon when we were talking before, Nihar, about sort of the technical training and how you've kind of learned that. But is there any kind of training on the kind of softer skills in terms of, dealing with those different types of people? Have you had anything around that?
I think we've had some training on project management and just working with timelines and stuff like that. And then also about just the first couple of months were just about learning all the softwares that we use within Cummins. So there's a lot of softwares that we use to download codes to place orders, and I think it was important to learn all of them. And yeah, that's the ones that we did in the beginning.
Great, thank you, Nihar. There's a kind of a theme occurring with everything that we're talking about, with the support that you're given, the amount of training that you have access to, which is really, really nice to hear, because I think it's a daunting experience, isn't it? Applying for a placement and then joining a new scheme, you're kind of not knowing what to expect, but there's so much support there. So that's great to hear so far. And Jack, I'm going to come back to you just to talk about your projects. Is there anything that I know you gave us a brief overview about, the particular division you're working in, but is there any particular projects that stand out for you so far?
I did a redesign of a component that I really enjoyed. So I kind of got sent some technical documents. I think it was some academic literature saying, this is a new way of doing this. Could you have a look at implementing this into one of these components? So I was able to do all the research and draft up some designs. And then I did the simulation work to see how it was going, and, went back and forwards trying to figure out how it worked. So that was really good. It was really involved process. And I got to speak to loads of people around the business to be like, how does it, because there's different teams that are responsible for different like blocks of the battery. So I was like, oh, can I fit in between your stuff with the suppliers, be able to make it? So I got to speak to loads of people around the floor, and then I present my progress and stuff weekly. So it was a really good project to do early on, because now I found like, I'm stuck with this, and like I know who to go to because I did this thing early on, and it's just been good to get into meetings, because I've never done proper meetings before. So
yeah,
it's nice to have.
And you'll spend a lot of your life doing meetings.
Absolutely will.
No, but I think that's a really nice point as well, going out and speaking to people in the business and having access to all of that kind of knowledge and, varied experiences, different departments, different perspectives is really great. And that's the benefit of working for a large organization like Cummins and Accelera, that, you do have access to that knowledge, and you can just go and ask it. From the sounds of things, go and ask anybody for help and, and their knowledge, and it sounds like they'll be there to help you. So that was a really good introduction to kind of your lives so far from the kind of technical point of view. Carla, I know you've got a question to jump in here with, haven't you?
Yes, thank you for letting me ask my question. Exchange. So I'm going to come back to you, Asher, and ask this question. So we've got a question from Hepzibah at the Anglia Ruskin University, who wants to know a little bit more about automation and your plans for automation processes at Cummins. So what are the grand plans? Are you planning on making more things automated?
Yes, so I know in our bays, which is where we do all the manufacturing and stuff, we are having a complete retrofit of our massive manufacturing plant here in Huddersfield, taking out a lot of the old processes, bringing in a lot of new processes, which in turn brings with it a lot of automation. Obviously, like rationalizing the manufacturing process, saving people time to be able to focus on other areas of the business. I think there's been a really large push for some of it after, making sure that the quality of the products we are creating is as good as it can be. So I think it's always about that sort of innovative working, and you've got people always striving for the best at this company, and I think that is the way going forward. So I can't give you an exact number, but I know there is. I've been to see them, and they are insane. Like some probably amazing, like massive automation machines. But we already have quite a largely automated process, to be fair, with a few things over there. I think it's a really interesting technology that's coming through a lot lot more now, and it will be interesting to see what happens as we go forward.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how Cummins has developed over the last 15 years that I've worked with you as well, from everything, you know, Grace, you'll hopefully be able to second this, from how things were back then 15 years ago to how they are now. It's just absolutely amazing, some of the technologies that you've implemented and everything else. Asher's smiling, it's like, I can't believe you're that old, Carla. I am, Asher, I am this old that I remember back then. So what we're going to do now is, Sophie, we're going to hand back to you and talk about other things that you're involved in at Cummins.
Thank you very much, Carla. I'm going to come back to you here, Neha, because as we talked about a little bit earlier on, you had the kind of experience of relocating. And I suppose, you know, the social side of working at Cummins is probably quite important when you're away from home, and especially kind of making new friends and things. So can you tell us a little bit more about your life outside of work at Cummins?
Yeah. So as I said about the WhatsApp group chat, that's kind of how all of us placement students came together. I think there was about 50 people on the group chat initially, and then we kind of came, talked about meeting up. And before the placement started, some of us met up. But also at Cummins, I think they organized a lot of activities for us to come together. There's something called Triple EC in Cummins where we volunteer 4 hours to various charitable causes, and they would bring in placement students together. So some of the placements together, we went to a primary school and we helped with the refurbishment of it. And then, also in September, we had like a September for Safety Month. So they had like loads of activities like obstacle courses, scavenger hunts, etc. for placement students to do together. So I think it was a good way for all of us to bond together and get to know people.
Yeah, so they really encourage you to spend time together as a group.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really nice to hear. And again, you know, for students looking to kind of, especially those that are relocating kind of further afield, it's good to know that you kind of got, you know, the support that, you know, you can find somewhere to live and people to live with, but also when you're actually in role, that kind of social aspect as well, and that bonding. Asher, is there anything that you do at Cummins, or anything that you wanted to highlight about, you know, kind of the more social side, or anything extracurricular that you do?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a very different experience from a lot of people I know. So I'm living in Sheffield and I commute up to Huddersfield because my hometown is Sheffield. So for me, it's a lot less about living here. But the great thing is I still think I get all the opportunities that I would, even if I did live here, sorry. So we again have a group chat with all of us in. We've done so much since we've been here. We have a weekly bouldering session every Tuesday, where we all go to the bouldering places down the road. Normally we meet up and go on a Friday. You know, we'll go just to sort of chill after work as a group of us. We obviously have like bigger events like go-karting as well, that we like to do on every occasion. There's one this evening actually. I'm gonna win again. And then we've I'm
boring now,
literally. But then it's, you know, it's not just all about the big things that we do. It's sometimes the small things, you know, even at lunch times, we'll all go and sit together in the canteen, all the placement students, and even non-placement students. I've become great friends with some of the technicians down in the lab actually. And, you know, I go and see them very often, and, you know, I chat to them, and we sometimes go out for like coffee during the day or whatever. So it's no matter where you are, as long as you take that, even if you feel like it's going to be really overwhelming, as long as you take that leap and just sort of go in with 2 hands running, you'll be absolutely fine, because everyone's here for each other, and there is always so much opportunity to be had, like socially here as well, including, you know, in your own teams as well, because depending on what happens, there will always be like functions, parties, stuff like that. So there's always something going on.
Amazing. Thank you, Asher. It sounds like that, you know, that you can kind of go in and talk to anybody, and everybody's kind of there to look out for each other. Jack, is there anything that, you know, that you do at Accelera that's slightly different, or have you had any kind of other experiences that you wanted to share?
I just second really especially, well, it's a very social company anyway, but I've really enjoyed the placement aspect. So because Cummins recruits so many placement students, there's I think at least 6 of us in the building. So we always have our lunch together. We've had loads of activities after work, and then also Cummins have done, or Accelera, I should say. They have their own activities. So there's been lots of like large dinners. We're doing everyone's planning their Christmas events now. We're having bake
Yeah,
sales.
of course. Yeah.
Lots of charity involvement, which is always good to see. So I've done my Triple EC as well, which is the volunteering thing. And that's really good because you'll do it with a group of people, so you can meet new, loads of people. Because it's sometimes when it's online, it's quite hard to put faces to names or even know what everyone does, because what you see is a title and a job description. And sometimes that's not most helpful. So when you have these events, it's really good to meet people and just know what they do and have just more friendly faces around the office. So yeah, now that I'm a few months in, I'm feeling very settled because, you know, coming in, I felt big company, I was a bit scared. So yeah, I feel much more settled now.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Now, I feel like we've got a really, really good insight into Cummins just from talking to you through. I think we've got a great insight into, you know, the range of roles, what day-to-day life is like, and then kind of the more social side, as well as training and development. That's always really come through as well. So I'm going to hand back to Carla now because we're going to find out how to get the job.
No, we're not. We're going to find out what bouldering is. Am I the only person who doesn't know what that is?
I think so, Carla.
Okay.
Bouldering.
No, carry on.
Tell me more, Rash. I have no idea.
It's a bit like, so it's like a climbing wall, but it's done on like really like uneven surfaces, and you've got like mats on the floor, so you don't have harnesses. And for me, who's absolutely scared of heights, like it's probably my worst thing ever, but I love it. And it's like all uneven surface, and you've got to like try and follow the path of like certain like handles and stuff. Yeah, it's really good fun. If you haven't done it, you come up one time. I'll show you a good time bouldering.
I'll be coming down, but upper body strength. I can imagine being able to.
Yeah, it's normally where I fail.
Yeah, me too. Love, me too. We'll sit and have a coffee while the rest of them boulder.
Better.
That's what you
I
got.
like that. I like that idea.
Thanks, Asha. Now, Grace, I am going to come back to you and talk about the application process. But firstly, what I'd like to do, stop it, Sophie. Firstly, what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit more about students who are watching and are thinking, deliberating, should I do a placement, shouldn't I do a placement? What do you think? And you're on both sides now. You've done a placement and now you're recruiting placement students, but what are the benefits and why would you encourage students to take even industry?
I just think doing a placement is such an invaluable experience.
Yes.
There is nothing like going into a real life work scenario. There is only so much that you can learn from theories and textbooks. And I think it's really important that you just get the experience of going into industry or into the work environment and putting into practice what it is that you've been learning at university, and then really start to hone your skills, technical and soft skills. So it's just such a great experience. You get to network with such a variety of different people. I know obviously students will have met lots of different people at university, but you'll get the opportunity to network with people of different levels within the organisation. So one minute you might be having a team meeting, the next minute you might be presenting to senior management. You're going to get such a wide variety of experiences and skills and knowledge that you just can't get from university. And I had an interesting conversation actually yesterday. I was presenting at the University of Sheffield, and there was someone from the NHS on there talking about their recruitment process. And they said if they had someone, they had two CVs in front of them. One of them had a higher grade but had no placement experience. The other person had a bit of a lower grade but had industry experience. They would be going for the person with industry experience. And I have to say, we really do value that as well. We really want to see people that have got experience. And yeah, I just think it's so important and so worthwhile doing. So if you're on the fence, I highly, highly encourage it. And it gives you a great foot in the door because as we've spoken about, many of our placement students go on to then secure graduate roles and then stay on with us and have really long, exciting careers at Cummins. And you're not stuck in the same team or the same role either. So I think since I've been here 11 years, I bet I've worked in 5 or 6 different departments in all different roles. And some of our senior IT managers, one of them became the HR manager for Europe, and another one transferred to the engineering department and is fully integrated in the engineering team now. So there is such scope for moving around, and we really just value people, the perspectives that you bring, the skills and knowledge that you bring, to be able to allow people to shuffle around the company. So you know, people that have had a long career at Cummins, you know, you're not sort of stuck in the same job for 20 years. You can move around. So it's just getting the foot in the door with the placement that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that the experience that Grace has mentioned, and the amount of students that we speak to who are doing a placement year, when they go back to university to do that final year, how much easier the final year is, because they understand about the, you know, the working 9 to 5 and, you know, the time management and things like that Ash has just mentioned as well. It all comes into play within your final year of university. It gives you so much different so much different experience, that's really bad English, different experience that it can offer you as well as placement. So yeah, make sure you get your applications in. And you've just mentioned there, Grace, as well about skills that you're going to learn and everything else, which nicely leads on to my next question about how important transferable skills are to you as a business. So in our prep session, you can imagine, everybody who's watching, how chaotic that prep session was. But the prep session we mentioned about different transferable skills people put into their applications. So everything. I think, Jack, are you the musician? Did you mention about music?
I've done a bit of music. I think, is it Asher who's done music as well?
Asher,
There's a couple of us.
yeah, a couple of people who mentioned music as part of their transferable skills. We've got ballroom dancers on the webinar today as well. So lots and lots of different things that the panel mentioned putting their application together. But Grace, how important to you are transferable skills in the application process?
Yeah, really important. So our workforce is really diverse, and we genuinely value the different perspectives and thoughts and skills that colleagues from all walks of life can bring. So we're always really interested to hear about any extracurricular activities or hobbies that students are into, because those things teach students such a wide range of transferable skills, whether that's leadership skills, problem solving, team working. There's always something that students can bring from, you know, the hobbies or part-time work or extracurricular things that they do, and they can just be transferred straight into the role. So like with Neha, not coming in with having any technical experience, but she's got transferable skills from university, and she's brought that into the role, and we can teach the technical things. But it's, you know, the important qualities and core values that you will really develop by doing you know, university projects, like I said, hobbies, part-time work. And I always encourage students to highlight things like that on their CV, make it stand out and show us what you've learned from that, or what it is that you've contributed and how that is applicable to the role that you're interested in. So highlighting really important things that you've done and making them stand out on the CV is a top tip.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, top tip. We can capture that bit. Thank you very much, Grace. And let's go back a little bit as well, since we're having a bit of a backwards webinar today, and talk about the application process. So the students, we've just mentioned, all of the roles are currently live on the Cummins Hub on Gradcracker. When the student clicks apply, what are the next stages?
So we have a really simple application process. It's just a case of submitting your CV. So go onto our employer hub, choose the role that you want to apply for, and just submit your CV. And it's as straightforward as that. I do always recommend students try and tweak and tailor your CV to the role that you're applying for. It just makes it seem more genuine and personal. And just make sure you include key information like what it is that you're studying. So what degree course are you on? When is your year of graduation? And make sure your contact details on there. You wouldn't believe how many CVs we see that don't have that basic information on. So it's important to include that on there. And then we, like I've mentioned before, we have a team of recruiters. So if our recruiters feel that you're a good fit for the role after they've reviewed your CV, they will fix up with you to have a really short telephone interview. And it's informal. It's just an opportunity for them to get to know you a little bit better, make sure that you are suitable for the role, and it gives you a chance to ask any questions that you might have. So in advance of that, I do suggest doing a bit of research into Cummins, and make sure you've read the job description as well and have a bit of an understanding of what it is that you've applied for. And then the recruiters just want to know a bit more about you. They may ask technical questions, but they won't be too hard. So please don't worry. It's just to sort of gauge logical thinking, especially if you're coming from a STEM background and you're applying for an engineering role. We just want to check that you can sort of logically work through things. But another top tip for a telephone interview, just try to sound enthusiastic and try to avoid any sort of monotone one-word answers. The recruiter only has your voice to go off. So if you can just try to sound engaged and genuinely interested, that's going to really serve you well on that screening call.
Yeah. And smile. I know it sounds silly because I know you're on a call, but you can hear it when people are smiling and talking. So when you enjoy yourself, smile, seem engaged. Yeah, sorry, Grace, for interrupting.
Yeah, no, that's great to add on, Carla. And then after the telephone screen, you will then be invited to an interview, and that's the final sort of step then in the process. So most of the roles, managers will conduct an interview over Zoom, so you don't have to travel. Some managers, depending on how much involvement you'll have on site, so if you're going to be on site quite a lot of the time for your role, then those managers might want to host a face-to-face interview. So during the interview, whether it's on Zoom or in person, there'll be a mix of competency and technical questions. So I always recommend to students to just try and have a bank of scenarios in mind or examples that you can refer back to. So regardless of the question that's asked, if you've got some scenarios that are like standout moments for you, whether it's a challenging project you've worked on or whether you've had like a standout moment in a part-time role that you've had, or you've had a difficult scenario in a hobby, having those like banks of examples of things to share at interview, regardless of the question, you can sort of tweak it. That's always really helpful because we always like to hear about your experience and have like evidence of the answers that you're giving. So that's one thing that I would recommend making sure that you clued up on for your interview. But that's the final stage. So like we said, we're recruiting right now, and the quicker you can submit your CV, the quicker we can get you screened and take you through that process and get you a job offer so that you can then just carry on with the rest of your year at university, knowing that you've secured a placement, and ideally knowing that before Christmas. So then you can just go off and have a lovely Christmas and not have to worry about trying to get a placement role secured.
That would be a brilliant Christmas present, wouldn't it? Placement secured at Cummins before Santa comes and sees us. Thank you very much for that, Grace, and thank you for your top tips, which you mingled in to your little section there. Really appreciated. And what I'm going to do now, Ashrid, I'm going to come back over to you, and you used Gradcracker when you were putting your applications together, and talk to us about the initial steps. So it was the CV or online application that you put together. What hints and tips would you give the students who are putting that together, and how did you use Gradcracker to apply to your opportunities?
Definitely. So first off, I'd start by saying it's so easy to use Gradcracker when you're sorting out your placements, because just having all of the companies that you want to like apply to and having every single placement role on there at once is so easy. It makes it all in one place, saves you so much time going all over to different places to try and find stuff. So I went on Gradcracker and I started off by looking for companies that I thought sort of matched my ethos a lot. Cummins came up a lot with that, with a huge push for diversity, for inclusion, for taking on people who are, slightly more out there, because that's very, I'm not just, just one of your cut and paste, I like to think. So I think that was really important for me. Obviously, look through the job description very carefully. Make sure to read your job description as well, because depending on which Cummins branch you apply to, that will come into it later on. So make sure you read through that. But then I put together a CV. I think I put together a very quick cover letter as well. Even if they don't ask for a cover letter, put a cover letter with it, because it just does stand you out and shows you understand and have read what they're asking of you. And just I submitted that to Gradcracker, and like Grace mentioned, I got my placement before, it was the end of November. It's about nearly a year ago today now. So if you do it, if you do apply to Cummins, they do get back to you very quickly about these kind of things. So I would definitely suggest applying. One top tip I would give, though, when you are applying to Cummins in particular, is to say why you are passionate about, being part of this community, because this company has so much to offer, and you just have to start by reading through the bit on Gradcracker that tells you all about the company information and their core values to realize that it is embodied. It's not one of those companies that says and doesn't do. They do everything that they set out to do. So please read through that. And make sure to add that stuff into either your CV or your cover letter, tailor it to that, and you will 100% get a call back.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for that, Asher. And it's so lovely that comes off that personal touch as well. That's something that we hear year after year after year from Grace and Grace's colleagues as well, that, you know, it's a human who sits and reads through the applications and the CVs and everything else. And that's really, really is important to the students who put in so much time and so much effort to the applications. And like Asher just mentioned, thank you, Asher, about using Gradcracker as well. This is why we work so hard, the customer relations team works so hard in putting the hubs together. So this is the company profile on Gradcracker. We put together things like the our people pages, so little biographies about what people are up to at Cummins. We put together the About Us page, there's video on there, the information about the culture, so it's all there in one place that you can really put a thoroughly researched application together, and you can really tailor the application that you put together as well. So good luck when you're putting your applications in. Don't forget some of those key dates that I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. So first key date to have in your mind is the 18th, which is Monday, and that's the first deadline that we'll be working towards. So I'd like to thank you all. Good luck. Next week, me and Jessica are going to be joined on Thursday, 21st of November with Galliford Try, leading construction firm. But for now, thank you very, very much, Cummins. It's been absolutely amazing insight again, and you would have just such all lovely people. Love you all, and see you next week. See you all.
See you later.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.